Our next speaker is a retired principal, David Korte. David Korte was born and bred in Cape Town. He attended schools in the northern suburbs as a child and the southern suburbs as a teenager. He has always loved working with children, especially teenagers. He worked in his local church as a youth leader from his first year out of school and hasn't stopped working with children since then. He graduated from UCT, a qualified high school teacher, and started teaching maths at Pinelands High School. In his third year of teaching, he married Aya, and they have been blessed with 3 children who are now young adults. He was promoted to HOD and then to principal. After 5 years leading the school, he moved to Campus Bay High School as principal, where he worked for 19 years until the end of 2020. During the time as a principal, he was always very active in the South African Principals Association, the education program director for Common Good. He is now working in 2 schools in Botenhevel and 1 in Imizamo Yetu. He is Mr. David Korte, a newly retiree, still conversant with all the processes of SGB nominations and elections, etc. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. That's very nice introduction. I appreciate that. And then just to say to my colleague Dia Chetty, who we worked together for many years in the Principals Association, I think to all the people who are in this webinar, Dia has put together a very thorough, I would call it a song sheet on how to run a governing body election, and he presented it very quickly this afternoon, but it would be a very useful document to use going forward. So I get to do the more fun stuff, and so I'm going to just talk briefly around some ideas around governing body elections. So if we could just go to my next slide, please. So the question that I thought would be fun to look at, now you know what kind of people who qualifies to be a governor, but now you've got a school with 500 children in it, and let's say they've each got a parent or maybe a parent and a half. So you maybe got 700 or 800 parents in your school. You can't have all of them on the governing body. So who are you going to look for when you're looking for governors? So my first question is, what skills would be useful on the governing body? Now, if you think of the kinds of jobs you need to fulfill in the governing body, you need to have a treasurer, and it would be useful if that person had some financial knowledge. So anyone working in the financial sector, in the banking sector, they don't have to be a chartered accountant, but if they like working with numbers and their job is with numbers, then that would be someone who I think you should be proactive about and think, you know what, actually I must ask this parent if they'd be interested in standing for the governing body. So I'm talking really about being a little more proactive and not just arriving at the election and hoping there are going to be a bunch of nominations, but it's kind of, okay, fine, let's think about who do we need. Then you're going to need someone to chair the disciplinary portfolio. That's a lot of work, eh? Often the disciplinary hearings can go on for hours. So you need someone who has that kind of time. Well, maybe you want to, if you're a high school, maybe you want to connect with your past pupils. So it'd be nice if you had a parent who actually was a past pupil to run that portfolio. Then you might have parents who are qualified in some practical skill, a plumber, electrician, a fitter and turner, welder, someone who's a builder. You know, stuff always breaks at the school and you always need stuff fixed. And so if you had someone who had that skill set, then they would be the perfect person to head up the buildings and grounds portfolio. So, okay. So we're looking at skills, and those are some of the skills which you know, when you're looking at who could be governors, it'd be nice if you had some of those skills in the room. Okay, let's move on to the next slide, please. Okay, availability. Now, you may find that there's a governor someone who stands as a governor who's the most brilliant person. You know what? They are a chartered accountant. They love the school, but oh dear, they have a job which is in Dubai. So they're out of the country for 3 months at a time, and then they're back for a month. That person is not going to be a good governor. They might be able to they might have the right skills, but if they're not available to come to your meetings and they're always missing, then that's a problem, because you want governors who can actually come to your meetings. So I'm not saying that you must discount people who are working really hard and long hours, but it is nice to have some of your governors who are available to come to the school during the day. So if there are some, let's call it stay-at-home parents, or people who have retired or have more time for whatever reason, and are able to actually come and help out at school, because forever there's stuff that needs to be signed at school. There are things that need to be verified, or there's a hearing that needs to be held. And if those, sorry, I'm just closing the door here. Sorry, my very noisy dogs, apologies for that. So some of the things that you need to put up front when you're having chats with parents are, when are your meetings? How long are your meetings? And are there extra things that are needed? So for instance, if you are the treasurer, you're probably going to have to come to another meeting, which is the finance subcommittee meeting. If you're running the discipline portfolio, you're going to have to come to another set of hearings. So, you know, you need to be upfront with the people. So when they're looking at putting their names forward as governors, that they know, actually, you know, this is actually going to be quite a lot of work and it's time consuming. Okay, so that's availability. Let's go on to the next slide, please. Okay, track record. Now, this is a little controversial, but it'd be nice if you had someone on your governing body who has some standing in the community. Is this person possibly a youth club leader? Are they running scouts? Do they run a community feeding scheme? Are they involved in the local mosque or the local church? Now, if you have those kinds of people, they already have a profile in the community. And so if you have to work with your community in any way, those people are half the job is done. Are there parents who have already proven to be very helpful at school? You've seen already, they can come to school and be part of the feeding scheme. They can assist you during the school day, or they have come over the weekend. They've done stuff for the school already. Well, then that would be a good person. And are there any references? You know, sometimes you need to maybe, if this parent is completely unknown to you, and you know this person is going to have their name put forward, then maybe you must just do a quick little check and see, is there anything you need to know about this person before they come on board? Because a very difficult or obstructive or argumentative governor can slow your work up massively, and it can make the meetings unpleasant. And if the meetings are unpleasant, remember, this is unpaid work. Every single parent governor is giving goodwill towards the school. Unpaid, often unrecognized, And so you're relying heavily on goodwill. So if the meetings are horrible, because there's always a screaming match between one or two difficult governors and the principal or the treasurer or whatever, then what happens is parents stop coming. So then you struggle to actually run the meetings because no one wants to come and sit through that for 2-3 hours. So check and see you don't have those kind of people on the governing body. Okay. Can we have the next slide, please? Okay, so that was just a little something to make you think about inviting people onto the governing body before you actually end up in the election and now you're asking for nominations. You don't want to be in that position. You want to actually have proactively identified people who you know are going to add tremendous value as governors before you get to that moment. So the main portfolios in the governing body are the chairperson, the vice chairperson, the secretary, and the treasurer. And I can't emphasize enough how important these positions are. The chairperson is going to be an absolutely key person in managing the governors and in providing the governance to the school. And so if you have a chairperson who has a good relationship with the principal, that's a very, very good start. You want the two people to be able to get on and be able to work very well together, because that's exactly what's going to happen. The vice chairperson must be chosen as someone who could act as the chairperson, because in the perfect world, the chairperson will continue for their 3 years and that'll be fine. But stuff happens, and the next thing, the vice chairperson has to step into that position. And if they were chosen without the thought that they have to do that job ever, then it could be a problem. The secretary doesn't necessarily have to be a parent, and I would suggest that you bring this, that the secretarial function is run by the school, because keeping proper minutes of a governing body meeting is absolutely crucial for the good running of a school. And so you want those minutes to be generated at least within a week of the meeting, and they must be of such a nature that they record clearly all the decisions that were taken. And so if you have someone who's unaccustomed to doing secretarial work and you make them the secretary, and then they must keep notes for the meeting, and they don't do a good job of it, it can derail your entire process. So please just be thoughtful about that. And then the last position, which is mandated by legislation, is the treasurer. And this is also a key position, because the treasurer is going to be the person who's going to hold the budget the closest and make sure that you don't run out of money, and that the money is well managed and correctly disbursed. So it's also a key position of trust. And so the treasurer needs to be someone who you really absolutely have faith in and is going to act in every way in the best interest of the school and has a brilliant track record. Now, there are other portfolios which you can add to the governing body, which we would suggest you consider just to make the governing body run smoothly. But I'm not going to talk about those. My colleague Tony Marshall is. And so on that note, I'm going to stop my presentation and hand back to Madam Chair, and you can move to the next speaker. Thank you so much.